Bam, we are live. Welcome back to another episode of The Awakening Self. My name is Aaron Fisher, and today I bring you another guest. Her name is Linda. Before I start, let me read Linda's bio to you. So, Linda is a founder, certified information and wellness guide, writer, and poet that enjoys inspiring consciousness through the power of words. Her mission is to support people's journeys back to themselves by mentoring others through shifts from a state of doingness to beingness. As an avid meditator for over a decade, Linda is also a strong proponent of the benefits of meditation and integration practices, and has had the pleasure of supporting individuals with rising above their growth points and fears and learning to show up for themselves every day. So, without a further ado, let me bring you. Hey,
Hello.
how you doing? I didn't know which account because I saw both of your accounts on. I'm like, which one do I do?
This is what I'm telling you with Instagram. It's doing weird things. I don't know, but I'm like, whatever. I'm on the right account, so all good, all good. I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's good to have you, and I'm happy I'm getting better and better at reading people's bios.
All good. I'm sure you're like dabbling in so many bios and in so many sessions. You're doing some exciting things. I'm happy for you.
Oh, thank you. It's always fun. It's exciting to learn to grow, to learn how to read out loud. That's
I mean,
the
that's a
goal.
great prerequisite for this type of work, right?
It's a goal I have for 2020. It's getting me started.
All good.
So back to us and the conversation. So yes, that was your bio. It's always great. I've known you for about a few years now, which has been absolutely incredible. But to those who don't know you, tell us about you, your story, where you began, where you got to, where you are now. Tell us everything.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I was born and raised in Alberta. As you know, I moved out west about 10 years ago, and I was kind of going back and forth between east, west. I'm an avid traveler. I love traveling. I love immersing myself in different cultures. I think that's the best form of education. Aside from reading amazing books, I am a book lover, as you know. I have libraries upon libraries of books. Um, yeah, and in terms of my background, I mean, I've been such a avid learner. I love knowledge. I love learning. I have an understanding of human behavior. I've always had a passion for it. Those, and then went to grad school, leadership, communication. And then I have a number of certifications in the realm of understanding human behavior and supporting individuals. And so for the last over 10 years, I think it's more like 12, 13 years, I was a consultant. And the gist of my work essentially was going into organizations and supporting them through transformation, but really representing the people in the employee base. And, I went into that field really wanting to make a difference. I loved working with people. I loved connecting with people. And I was like, wow, if I can do this within organizations, amazing, right? But I mean, it does definitely, I tell people, anyone interested in that realm of work, any transformational organizational work, I mean, there's pros and cons to it, but essentially you're dealing with a lot of the ups and downs, the immersive waves of corporations and, the decisions they make and the impacts and repercussions of that. And I was a witness to it all. And, I had the pleasure and sometimes the disheartening position to really support individuals through the good and the bad, of just all of these massive changes organizations have been going through over the past, several years, especially with the uprising of technological advances and whatnot. And again, I knew that, as I got older, I said to myself, the what is the consulting, but my why has always been helping people, helping human beings through that transformation, helping human beings come back to themselves. And so as I got older and deeper into the work, I started getting this percolating feeling of like, ooh, like I'm not feeling inspired by this work, right? It just kind of felt like it was this whisper of like, you're meant to do more. And I was like, what? Like, you know, this is something I had known for over a decade, you can imagine. And, you know, a lot of people on the outside looking in on my life were like, wow, like, you know, you're successful, you have all these things, you have, you know, the nice home, the comforts or whatnot. And I was like, yeah, I mean, great, you know, star sticker there. But I just couldn't, you know, I couldn't make sense of why, despite having all these things, I felt amiss, right? I felt this sense of, but there's something more, like there's something missing there. I was helping people, but I'm like, I don't think it's in this way. I think it was boxing me, right? And one of the jokes in my field was, no matter what industry I was going into, supporting organizations, I was always known as like the inside therapist. I was always a magnet for people just coming to me and just divulging their complexities and their life and their issues outside of work. It didn't matter where it's just like, it was like the sign I had on my forehead, like, tell me your problems, I will come fix you, right? And so I was like, you know what? I think life is trying to pivot me. It's just trying to go, you know, you're doing kind of what you're supposed to do, but it's big, it's beyond this, right? You got to think outside the box. And so, I mean, I think I was feeling that about 5 years ago. And I tell people, because I've lived this, I say, you know, sometimes when we get those feelings, it's so faint. It's just a feeling. And the way I describe it, it was a feeling in my body. It was just this, like, I would go to work and I was less inspired. I loved the people. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're wonderful people. There was nothing wrong with it. And I felt guilty for feeling that way. Like, why do I feel just like something's missing? And it kept getting louder and louder and louder. And naturally we want to kind of go, okay, maybe if I just change the project or change the industry or do this or do that, right? And then fast forward to last year, I had decided enough. I had this loud whisper, actually end of 2018, this loud voice telling me, you need to let go. You need to let go. And I tell people, I personally think I've gone through multiple awakenings. I don't think it's a point in time. I think it has always evolved. I make jokes. It's like every 3 years for me. I've just noticed that pattern for myself. It's like every 3 years. And when the 3-year hits, I'm like, oh, something's going to come, like something's going to go down this year. But I was hitting my 3-year point last year, and it was end of 2018. And I was thinking, okay, like this feeling is not going away. Right. And it was funny because the more I felt that way, the more my outside world was getting more and more successful. Like it was just this, it was a paradox feeling. Like the more I was like, oh, I don't know, like the lack of connection, the more the outside of my world was it was a test. It was trying to like lure me in. It was tempting me to stay in the comfort, you know, throwing, you know, promotions and like amazing projects and like bonuses. And like, it was just coming at me. And I'm like, am I crazy to walk away from all of this? Like, am I insane? And then the beginning of 2019 happened and I just couldn't take it anymore. It was this loud voice telling me, trust and let go. And so I remember walking in to the office and saying, I'm walking away. Like that's it. I'm done. And I was tested. Number of people were like sitting me down. Are you sure? How are you? Like just everything you can imagine. Like people just going, like, this doesn't make any sense. Like everything around you is so successful. And I'm just like, what do you have to go on? And I honestly said to these corporate leaders and executives, I told them it's a feeling. It's my instinct. And they did not, they were like, so you're making all of these decisions based off of a feeling? Like, do you have solid data? Do you have facts? Do you have a plan? I was like, nope. And they were like, huh. They just didn't know what to say to me. And I didn't know what to say to them because I said, I'm speaking in a language that is my soul. And it's not boxed in corporate lingo, right? And I said, it served a purpose doing this work for over a decade, definitely did. But life is telling me now, use the transferable skills of what you've built working with people and now take this to the next level. And it was providing an invitation to say, are you willing to come this direction or are you going to fall back into the comfort? And so after I did this last year, I, on a whim with a friend, decided, let's go to Thailand. And you know, I told you this, right? And I was just like, I'm going to Thailand. So I did this, stayed on a very secluded island, called it a magic island. It was just so serene, so beautiful, so peaceful. It was exactly the timing of it. You know, it was definitely divine timing. It was perfect. It gave me a chance.
Technical difficulties. All right. Let's get her back on. Ooh. What can I say? Technical difficulties sometimes. Let's see if we can get her back on here. Hey,
Oh, okay. Didn't know what happened there. You froze. Okay.
it was technical difficulties. So you were talking about Thailand, and then after Thailand, it just went bang. But
Oh, okay.
but people should also know a background story of you that technology and you just no.
This is why I do tests, multiple tests. So I changed the connection. So hopefully it's better now.
No, it's good because as you were speaking, I'm like, you know, like technology has been really good up to this point. I'm like, I know something's going to happen soon. And then all of a sudden it's just like, it starts disconnecting. And I'm like, that, if this didn't happen, then I wouldn't be talking to Linda. It just wouldn't.
Anyone who knows me knows that there's so much truth in that. It's just the thing. I don't know if it's my energy, but it's just like weird things happen. But I'm glad we're back on.
Okay, so get us. So you said you went down to Thailand and then.
Yeah, so I went down to Thailand on basically it was just like several weeks of planning. We just kind of went. And then it was divine timing. Everything kind of fell into place in terms of it being the perfect trip. I mean, I was immersed in the jungle, no technology, no connection whatsoever to the outside world. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like I've slowed down so much compared to my schedule prior to, which by the way, I was known as the person who had an insane schedule. Like I was the go, go, go. I had multiple things on my schedule. It was just the way I moved about in the world. And I found nothing wrong with that. It was just a form of living for me. And it's funny because I tell people I've been meditating for over a decade as well. I've been a huge proponent of it. And yet I was functioning, I had compartmentalized that practice, right? I wasn't embodied in it. And so being in Thailand, it forced me to be embodied in the practice of everything that I had studied, immersed in for 15 years. And I was like, wow, like I was starting to get ideas and scary things coming down in terms of like taking chances and like letting go of further things and like big steps I need to take. And I was just like, no, I can't do this. Right. And I was just like, okay, let me just, when I go back to, when I go back home, I'll just kind of, simmer on the ideas that I'm getting. I'm sure it will change. Right. And then so I come back to the city and I tell people, like, I literally landed at the airport and I was like, I felt so foreign. Like everything was so busy, go, go, go. And the old me relished in that. I reveled. I was invigorated by that energy. And then as soon as I came back from the trip and I had let go of my, my workings and whatnot, I felt different. Like my energy felt different and I felt kind of overwhelmed. And I was just like, I remember going to the airport and bolting home. And I was like, maybe I just need a couple days to kind of relax and, jet lag, whatever. We've been traveling for over 20 hours. And it was like a good month. I had isolated myself for a good month. I was like, where are you? I'm like, I am hiding. I am hiding. I can't make sense of why I'm so like sensitive to everything. And, you knew where I used to live. I was in the hub of like insanity. Like it was an amazing area, but it was so go, go, go busy in line with my old energy. Right. And then when I had come back, I was like, even going across the street to get like tea or like going grocery shopping, I was like, oh my God, there's so many people. There's so much construction, the construction insanity. Like so many people wanted to live in the area. They were building so many condos. It was insane. And I remember just kind of like closing my blinds and just trying to find that solitude, that quiet again. And I'm like, what in the world's going on? And in that space, I remember meditating hours almost every day. I mean, I had the time and journaling quite a bit. I've also been an avid journaler on and off and writing. And so I took it upon myself to like really sit with myself and understand like what is going on. I knew it was going through a metamorphosis and I knew I had gone through a number of changes throughout my life, but this felt different. And so I kind of went, okay, like, let me take a step back. Let me understand what my thoughts are telling me. And I remember, and I told the story of this on my page a while back, but it was this voice that loudly said, detach. And I remember going, but I already did. I literally was just starting to argue with this voice. I'm like, I already did. I let go of everything. And it was like, detach. And I remember telling my friend that, and she's like, what else do you have to detach? Like, you've let it go. And I'm like, I don't think I have. I think there's a lot more that I need to understand here. And that was the beginning of a huge catalyst of change that I could have never fathomed or never imagined would happen, because I was thinking, oh, okay, like let go of this field and I'll just find another field and blah, 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 whatever. Boy, it was one of, I mean, again, as I'd said earlier, I've gone through multiple awakenings, but this was more mind, body, and spiritual awakening. It was happening all at once. And I can honestly say, looking back now, my awakening phases before were in one area, like my mind, and then my body going through things and my soul going through things. But I don't know what the energy of 2019 was. A lot of people were saying too, like it was something was in the air, but it was literally everything was just hitting me. And I remember going, oh, like midway through last year, this is why I needed the space. This is why I needed the time off, because this is a lot of integration work. This is a lot of inner work that I could never have gone this deep if I was immersed in my field still, trying to figure out the next move. And so, I mean, there's so many things that happened last year. I think we would need like 3 days to go over it. But to sum it up, it was allowing me to come back to a state of who I was when I was much younger. And I had not connected to that version of myself for, I don't even know, like 25 years, 20 years. And that side of myself was really creative. Like a lot of people didn't know I wrote, right? Like even my family, like no one knew I was writing and I was doing poetry. And when I was really, really young, I used to do songwriting, right? I used to play the keyboard. like my family has a very musical side to them. And I never, it's kind of like I boxed that side of me, and then I went really professional and the intellectual side of me. And I remember going like, why? I had to talk to my inner child, like, why, what happened? Like, what caused that sever? And then I realized it was because I was getting, it was the intellect in me was being reinforced. It was being rewarded. It was being pulled. I had formed this identity that I am the intellect. Like I am, you know, the smart one. I get your PhD, like do these things. And I had lost that connection to that creative side in me, that my life was trying to go, no, you need to go this way. And it's like, I was like resistant. So, and it wasn't until I slowed down and really gave myself that space that I started to reconnect to that creative side. And I'm in the midst of it still, but that side of me is very spiritual, very poetic in my writing. You know, my voice is quite unique in terms of like the writing that I do. And I was just like, I don't know a lot of people who write like this. Like it was scary. Like, and I had to reconnect to that. And it just, I remember telling my friend, in that span of months that I had taken off, I had probably filled 3 journals of just free writing. Just like, it was just coming out of me. It was kind of like this bottled energy that was like, now we have a portal to express ourselves. And I had not given that space to myself before. And then, you know, now comes fall of last year, and it was like, okay, now you need to sell everything, give it away, and move. And I was just like, what? Like, you know, this is insane. It's just like, what the hell? And I remember thinking, when people were asking me, like, why are you leaving? First of all, I kind of got that, again, it was a percolating feeling of, I just was not attached to my area anymore. It was too busy. It was too crazy. And I was like, this is not aligned. I have to live in alignment. And I don't know where my next move will be, but I know it's not this area. And I don't think it's a big city. And I was telling people close to me, I'm like, I'm really feeling a pull towards nature, like more serene, right? I don't mean in the middle of nowhere, but definitely more serene. I had done this big city life, living right in the core of the city for a decade on and off. And now it's like, now life wants me to kind of get into that quiet mode. And so it was just like, this voice was just kind of like, Kate, sell everything, give it away, go. And I did that within a span of 2 weeks. It was like, it was crazy. And I had people coming to me, what are you doing? And I'm like, honestly, again, what did I say? I said, I'm following my instincts. And they're like, this whole instinct voice thing, what's going on? Like, if I want to talk to your instincts. And I'm like, no, I have to trust it. I have to embody the very things that I advise people, right? I'm like, I don't teach anything that I haven't gone through, right? I don't believe in that personally. And I was really in the midst of integrating all of my learnings over the past 15 years. I'm like, no, I'm really putting to practice everything that I have studied. And I have to have this trust in the unknown. I have to have this trust in the uncertainty. And if I don't create that space, then, and I try to control how my next steps will come, I will never understand how beautiful my life can be, because I'm not allowing this universal force to kind of co-create with me, to support with me. So it was really building this trust with something that I couldn't touch and I couldn't see. It was just a feeling. And so, yeah, it was really fast. Everyone's like, what the, right? It was just really, really crazy and fast. And so I kind of moved, and now, you know, for me, it's just, again, it's just phases of transition. I tell people I'm still in the midst of a metamorphosis. I don't think you can put a time on these things. I don't think you can compartmentalize them. I think they come in waves. And I think our job is to build that relationship with the uncertainty in a way where it's healthy, where we're not afraid of it. And I think you can't do that if you don't garner a relationship with presence. And so I know my work is getting more into like mindfulness. I've had a number of people asking me, like, how do I slow down? They don't know how to slow down. They've been inundated with teachings and lessons from society to, you need to be the fastest, you need to be the best, you need to push yourself. And it's just losing this relationship with flow, right? And, you know, I don't know where in society we broke this understanding that flow is the very thing that guides you to the success and the happiness and the way of being that is right for you. It's not the enemy, right? And so in living this, I can see that. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. You're rewiring, you're reprogramming everything that you've been taught is success, right? Especially you've been one of those people that's been, A-type personality, go, go, go. I mean, I was that girl, and I'm doing, and I'm not, implying it's bad. It's just more so like, how can I leverage the good from that in a way where I can respect the flow in my life rather than look at it as it's too slow, try to control it, try to be ahead of the flow, right? Where it's really, you can't control when it tells you something or when it pushes you towards something, because in the flow is where our answers reside. And in the flow is where we get the best advice from a source that we can't explain, right? So that is a caveat. So now we're in present time. That's the summarization of, the metamorphosis I've gone through in the last while. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So many questions that I actually want to pull from what you were talking about. One point that I actually do want to make is the idea of the sunken cost trap, where people feel like they'll lose more than they'll actually gain by making a choice and making a change. So just acknowledge you for doing that, because though it's a bias and we can all be like, yes, we'll gain more, but like it doesn't matter. It's still hard. Like if your identity has been something like this your whole life, and now you're going against everything you've ever known, it's not like, oh no, it's just easy. It's like, no, that's really, really damn hard. My main question that I want to ask you, because as you were talking, there was these two things that you were talking about, which is voice and intuition. And now I want to ask you the first about voice. How do you know that it's that voice you should listen to? And I'll give you an example. Like, when I went through a very dark time in my life, there was a voice that told me to kill myself, or a voice that told me I'm not worthy, or I'm not enough. And then later on in my life, I have a voice that speaks to me that I listen to. Now, through your journey of going through where you were to where you are now, how did you know which voice to listen to, or were there more than one voice? I'm kind of curious to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I think, back to the point I was alluding to around connecting more to my body, which in a way is another intuitive tool that we have at our disposal. It was definitely a feeling. I mean, again, I've had a number of different voices like telling me things that heard them, but it didn't feel right. And this felt expansive. This felt like, if I were to put it in poetic words, it's, the space where I could breathe more freely, imagining going in that direction. It didn't feel constricting. It felt okay. Like I feel more free. I feel lighter going in this direction. And that's why I'm also a huge proponent of like connecting more to your body, which I don't think we can really do well unless we're carving out time to be present and, building that relationship with ourselves. But it was definitely a pull. It was like, even though I was scared, don't get me wrong, I was feeling simultaneously a resistance. I could feel the resistance in my body. So that was my ego. And don't get me wrong, ego isn't bad. Ego is designed to protect you. So I had my ego side telling me, are you nuts? This doesn't make sense. Like all of these inner critical points of trying to get me to stay in my comfort zone, because again, it's designed to protect me. It's designed to go, you have all of this foundation. You're nuts to let this all go, to just kind of start over in a way. But then when I felt into that, it was like, logically you're right, but I'm uninspired by it. It felt constricting to imagine myself continuing on that journey, because I had the pleasure of also being around people who were 15, 20 years older than me. And I mean, I was always the youngest one in a lot of my consulting projects or whatnot. So I had a lot of mentors in the field, and I saw the way they lived, and like a lot of them would break down. And I was just like, I also have the fortunate experience of being around people who can show me, if I continue on this trajectory, this is possibly what my life may look like. And does that make me feel good? I mean, they had the money, they had the house, they had the cars, they had all the things that society deems successful. And if I went with my logical mind, I would go, hell yeah, I'm going in that direction. But my feeling was telling me, but that doesn't feel right, because I'm looking at that human being. They have all those things and they're kind of depressed and kind of critical, and they're just not fully happy. And they look at life as a passing. They don't live in it. It's routine like, and it's not something to kind of flow with. And I was like, do I want my life to go on that trajectory? And so when I went back to that, okay, if I connect to my body, how does this feel? And when I started to allow my body to be in tune with, my mind and my body to work together, I found that my intuition got stronger and my body was starting to guide me into things. And so all the decisions I made last year, it was just this pull. Even though outside it looked like insanity, this pull was telling me, but I can breathe more freely. I feel less restrictive. I feel more free. I feel happier. And so I would say definitely feel into what allows you to feel more free in yourself and follow that direction, even though it may not make sense, because you never know what stepping into that space will guide you towards next. It may not be what you envision. It may be that when you let go that thing, or when you step into that new realm, you meet another person that guides you to the very thing, to a mentor that takes you, like, you don't know where it's going to go. But if you don't take that chance, and if you don't follow suit to that feeling, then what you're really doing is you're not listening to your inner spirit. You're not listening to what your soul is trying to guide you towards, which is your very way of being, like what you were born here to do. Because I do believe all of us are meant to do something. That's why we're alive and we're born. And if you're fortunate enough to be breathing and alive and well, like, you have a purpose. And if you want to find that clarity, just follow that flow, follow that space of, this feels nice, makes no sense, but I'm going to see where this takes me, and then go from there. Yeah.
So somebody who's never taken that moment to trust that, to understand that, or to know how it looks, what would they do? What would those steps be? Because, and I'll get to why I'm asking this question, because a lot of times there's a saying that trust your gut.
Yeah.
But your gut is also pre-programmed with a lot of things that you should not trust.
Yeah.
So how do we separate the things that we shouldn't trust in our gut to know what we should trust? And when they say trust your gut, does that mean to trust your intuition, or is that something completely different? So it's multiple questions.
Yeah. So, I mean, I at one point used to think that too, like, because of, my immersion in psychology and all of the programming proponents of, like, learnings and whatnot. I always thought, okay, like, how do you decipher, if you have all these programs, like, how do you decipher that, let's say you have trauma bonds or traumatic experiences that overlay, how your mind pinpoints what feels right and what feels wrong. And, even with embodiment practices, even the way your body responds to things, right? It can be a little bit tricky. But I honestly say at the beginning, it's really just building a practice of getting still, like slowing down, right? It's not immediately even getting still. And I don't mean shutting down your thoughts. That's not the point of stillness, right? It's, can you live in harmony with all of these thoughts that are ruminating in your mind, right? Can you become the observer of your thoughts? Start with that. Because the thing is, it's very hard to decipher what your feelings and your intuition and your gut and your programs and all of that are doing if you don't do the first step of taking it upon yourself to learn how to be an observer rather than immersed in the experiences of all your thought, because you'll overwhelm your mind and body. And the natural tendency for a lot of people is to shut down because it's just too much, right? Especially people just carrying a lot of traumas. Your mind is designed to shut down and block things out to protect you, right? And when you start to slow down, you're slowly cracking openings to these spaces that, you know, I remember the last time we spoke, the shadows, right? Like there's this idea in some realms, like, you know, the shadow's a bad thing. It's not. It's a window to the spaces in the parts of you that were designed to kind of shut down things to protect you, right? And so when you start to look closely at your shadows, those are your programs, right? And again, you cannot do all these things of deciphering and pinpointing and understanding your instincts and guts right off the bat if you're just, you know, in the middle of everything. You've really got to take it upon yourself to go, okay, like for 5 minutes today, how can I just, let's say you want to take a walk. Okay, can I put my phone down, not look at anything but the trees and nature, and then observe how my body reacts? Do I get tense? Then start questioning that. Why am I getting tense? And then it's like you start hearing voices in your head. Okay, why am I thinking that? Right? Start questioning yourself. That's how you become an observer. And then you'll start to feel differences in your voices. Like some of the voices will feel very demeaning and like you'll feel like crap after you listen to these voices. And then some of them will feel like, that intrigues me. Let me try it. Because again, we have to let go of the idea that every single thing that we hear that we think is an intuition, especially when we're starting out, is going to lead to success. First of all, success is a construct, right? Like, and it's a societal programming to make you think that success looks one way, right? So let's say you're changing careers or you're letting go of a relationship. You know, sorry, my phone is like doing a weird thing. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say, you know, success is letting go of a relationship so that you can make space for something new, or changing careers. Okay. So majority of people might think, okay, I'm going to let go of this. And when I do that, that means I'm just going to get something better. No, it could mean that everything's going to fall apart around me because my whole life has been designed based off of a programming that demeaned me, that made me keep my self-worth very low. And before I can get to a better life, I have to reprogram and deconstruct and unlayer and do all of this work. And it's not just in our mind and it's not just in our bodies. Life will test us. It will start to, especially when we get closer to the bigger things in life, things will, you know, the tests will get more and more shiny. They'll kind of look like, you sure you want to let this go? Or you sure you want to let go of this person? I mean, they were really great today. And look at how they complimented you. Look at how it went so well today. You didn't fight. It will really, really test you. And I say, you know, it's not for the faint of heart to be on this journey. But what you will get beyond the phase of the discomfort is you'll have a deeper understanding of what is your intuition and gut and what is your inner critic. And you'll have a deeper understanding of your flow. And when life is trying to take you somewhere, you'll resist it less. And then your idea of success will completely transform. You'll realize that it's not boxed to look one way. Like your success could be, you know, living in the middle of nowhere and having no technology, but you're around trees. Like that could be your success. You don't know. And it's like, can you let go of the certainty that you've been programmed to make space of defining what success looks like for you? And can you be okay with it looking different from what society deems is successful? Because I think the measure of success, in my opinion, is joy, right? If you follow your joy, you can never go wrong, but it's easier said than done. To follow your joy for a lot of people is to let go of a lot of things that are comfortable, right? Especially the older you get, you're more ingrained with structures that make you feel like success and happiness can only be sought out in one way or another, right? So, yeah.
Well, it's what you're saying. It's kind of a quote that I actually read by Tony Robbins, which makes sense. It's success without happiness is failure. And
Yeah.
it's to be able to check in constantly, and not like, well, once I get this, then I will get that. It's like, well, why can't you get it at the same time, or why can't you move towards it? So if joy is your meter stick, and assessing it and understanding that joy is one of my values in the decisions that I make when I create my goals, then it helps you to understand, like, okay, a goal's made. Now let me understand, like, okay, so a goal's made. Does it fit into my values? Actually, no. So let's rewrite this goal and work on it. My next question was, because you're using these other two words, which is control and let go. How can somebody know if they're trying to control themselves? Like, how can you, for example, let's say somebody is trying to control their life and their destiny and their mind and their business and their life, but they're not aware of it. What would be some not symptoms, but some ways for them to acknowledge that they might be controlling a little too much within their lives? And
I think,
is control a bad thing?
Again, I think control is a mechanism of protection. Like all of these things that we deem, and some people may look at it as being bad. I don't think it's bad. I think, again, your mind is doing something to protect you. I think a symptom of control in our society is anxiety, right? So if you're feeling anxious about something, that's a huge sign you're trying to control something, and you have a really unhealthy relationship with the unknown. It actually brings you a sense of fear, like, and you can feel it, right? And I mean, I was around a lot of people like this who had multi-millionaire businesses. The idea of like they could lose everything and living that way, and they deem success by being able to think ahead. And I mean, you hear this all the time, like be 10 steps ahead and do this and do that. And it's like, okay, if humans were robots, fantastic, but we're not, right? And so I think for someone who's trying to understand, like, okay, I don't know if I am living in a way where control is my way of being, is look at the places in your life where you feel a sense of anxiety. Like if you were to lose it, does it make you feel like, does fear arise in your body? Does your mind brace with the idea of changing something in your life? Those are huge signs that, okay, like you could invite more deeper work into those areas of your life, and then understand, like, when did I become a person where my life is governed by being able to predict everything in this area of my life? Because life is not meant to be that way. Life is meant to be comfortable with the unknown, comfortable with the flow. And that is why I have a huge practice of mindfulness meditation, especially because I really take it upon myself before I was heading into the insanity of like business and all that stuff. I really had to come back to that sense of like, slow down, right? You can get so lost in this whole race of trying to be ahead, try to push things forward, blah, blah, and so many ways of that's a path of making so many mistakes that may look like success, but you're making mistakes for yourself, right? And you suffer in the end, and you may not realize that till 10, 15 years later, right? So I would invite anyone to really just, again, take a step back and start observing their life from a third perspective, and just start practicing that. Like the conversations you have with your friends, how you go about running your business. Let's say you have business, how you feel in your relationship. Like, start looking at yourself from a third party perspective. And then, do you like what you're seeing? Do you like what you're hearing? Just start with that. And then the more you do that, the more you'll realize, oh wow, like I'm really anxious. Like, I really need to lighten up. I really need to slow down, or I could really use a vacation that I haven't taken a vacation in 5 years. Why? Why do I feel like I don't deserve that? Right? Or like, if you haven't been in a relationship for a while, it's like, why haven't I been? Like, why? Like, start questioning things, right? Because again, like, if there's anything in your life where there's a disparity of joy, all life is trying to ask you to do is, it's whispering to you, look at this more closely. Look at it more closely. That's all. That's how it starts. And then the more we ignore it, the louder it gets. And it comes in feelings. It comes in symptoms of, for some, it's depression. For some, it's this feeling of like being uninspired, feeling bored. Like, these are all signs of it. And again, that's a huge symptom of people not being present enough. And so it just all circles back to like, how can we come home to ourselves? Because we all, I know many of us have heard this before, like, we all have the answers within, and it's a lot, it's hard for a lot of people to understand what that means. But, you know, I say the more you do this work, the more you'll start to understand, wow, I really do know what to do. I just haven't built a relationship of trust with myself. So my problem is that most people, the problem is not, they don't know what to do. Their problem is they don't trust themselves. Right. So, yeah. So again, come home to yourself and whatnot. So yeah.
One, there are the changes that people need to make in their lives. One thing that, you know, I hear from individuals is like, well, you know, it's like, it's time for me to let go, in the sense of like, I need to move forward, and I need to change my surroundings, but they've been my friends for like 20 years, you know, but like, if I, like, I love them, but I can't let them go, because that means that I don't love them anymore. When somebody tries to rationalize their situation in that, what advice would you give to somebody?
I mean, I've been through that myself too. Like, I've been around people where I could feel we're no longer aligned. Like, we're continually changing as human beings, and we have to, first and foremost, understand like we're never not evolving, right? And so I would say, if you're going through something like that, where you're feeling disconnected with someone, I'm a firm believer that you can do it with love, right? Like, I've never done it in a way where I'm like, I can't hang around with you anymore, and I don't like you anymore. Bye. Like, I've never done it that way.
Peace.
And as I've gotten, but as I've gotten older, I've just known, I've built this trust that it will naturally fall away, right? That is trusting yourself, your energy. Like, you will not align to people naturally. Your energy, your frequency will not align to people who are no longer resonance with you. If you can trust in that knowingness, you don't have to do much. You can just set the intention of, I want to be around people like this. And then when you create space in your life to trust the flow, you will notice those people will naturally fall away. It will be very graceful. And so I tell people, it doesn't have to be something that is full on effort. In fact, it's more, again, coming back to, can you trust that when you set the intention, life will pivot your life in a way where the things that are not good for you will naturally fall away? A lot of people cannot. That's why they aggressively try to break things apart, and then it turns into this unhealthy, toxic dynamic, or can turn into fights and anger. And that's not the way to go about it, in my opinion. It comes back again to like, just trust the flow once you set the intention. And it may not happen in your timeline, right? But you will know, like, the more you see that person, let's say they're not even attuned to themselves. Like, they're one of those people that's not really present. They're kind of like, let's say they're one of those people. They will not be able to deny that something's off, and they may ask you, and that's your shot to kind of be honest and be like, yeah, you're right. And it will be graceful, because when a person's willing to ask that question, they're usually feeling an energy of disharmony enough where if they care, they'll bring it up. If a person's not even asking you that question, I mean, let it again, you will feel the sever. You won't be able to deny it. And then those people, it will fall away, and either you'll have other people replace them right away, or life will be like, I want you to be in solitude for a bit because I want you to reintegrate with yourself first before I have you connect with other people. It's not about you. Some people are designed, some people are on the path of they need to be with themselves for a little bit so that they're in the resonance with connecting with the right people. And some people are in that resonance and their lesson is, can you be graceful? Can you be graceful and allow me, which is the universe, to kind of pivot your life? And can you trust yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I would say that's advice I have for anyone who's going through that, because I've been there. I've definitely been there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that as you're going through a change, your lifestyle changes and the things change. And it's true, as you are going through these changes, it's not about, oh, I can't be with them anymore, or I have to be with them. It's just like, as you organically, naturally change, that will organically, naturally change. And people that could have been your best friend today might not be that close to you tomorrow, but that doesn't mean you don't still love them.
Exactly.
That love is something that will always be there. Just the way that it's expressed in between you can change. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Because we have a little time left, let me ask you one last question.
Sure.
And it is, if you could speak to your younger self, what would you say to them?
Oh, wow. If I could speak to my younger self. Don't be afraid to be seen. I would say that. That is something, really going deep into inner child work. That was something that I think a lot of us kind of go through in many facets, whether it's being seen in a relationship, being seen in business, whatever it is. Especially being a woman, like don't be afraid to shine, right? And it's funny because doing consulting for over a decade, I mean, I had compartmentalized my shining. Like, how I was see it's I don't even know how to term it, but like I had compartmentalized like showing up, right? So with businesses and executives, I'd be like, yeah, like I could present, I could do well. And then it's like everything else, it was like, I just want to be in the forest and like chill and like, it's just like this just harmony of like, wait a minute, that's not, I need to look at that, right? And so it's like, I think, it's also programming too, right? Because when I was younger, I mean, I was very, I had opinions, right? Like, and I voiced them and I wasn't afraid to voice them. And I think at some point as I got older, like let's say junior high and whatnot, even though it may not be overtly stated, you're kind of taught in a way to kind of tame yourself, like compartmentalize your intellect in a way, right? And so I noticed over the years that side of me was kind of like, okay, I can do that in the business world. Like I can do that. And I was just like, yeah. And then it was like everything else. It was just like, okay. And then there was this funny side of me and like goofy side of me that I was just like, oh, that's part of me shining. But in the corporate world, it's like, not a lot of people get your jokes, and I can like, my jokes could go really out there. And I'm just like, they're going to take it the wrong way. So I think for me, it's just like, that is a part of being a consistent presence in my life, like building harmony in my life. Like I want to be able to fully show up in all facets of my life the same way. And I think a lot of people can relate to that because again, many of us are taught to be compartmentalizing how we show up. Like how we show up at work is different from how you show up at home. How you show up at home is different from how you show up in your relationships. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, I'm layering all of that. And it's definitely hard, but yeah, that's something that it's funny because recently I was like, oh, like, yeah, like how could I show up in a way where I'm authentic in this? And how can I do it this way? And even the way I write and the way I, express myself, like how can I do it in a way where it feels inherently authentic to me? And so it's definitely a work in progress, but you got to just keep working at it. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few things I'd love to talk to you about, but they only give us 1 hour, because you were talking about, the idea of like authenticity versus alter ego and how to show up. And we'll do that on the next talk we have,
Yeah.
because that can go on forever. But
Yeah.
like, I appreciate that. Before we go, there's two things. One, I just want to acknowledge you for the person that you are, the person that you have just continually to be transforming, for what you do, for trusting in yourself and making those decisions and moving closer to your heart and to your soul and to really what brings you joy in your life, and to wanting to live a life that really does help guide and help other people to be seen. And I just want to acknowledge you for all the work that you do and the knowledge that you share, and for the adventure of a life that you live. It's incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And last thing before we go, where can people find you?
Sure. So my Instagram and Facebook handle is I am Linda WY. And my website is www.lwara, so elwara.com. And then, my main account's linked to my writing account, which was Elwara Collective. So I pen poetry, prose, storytelling in conjunction with, I'm trying to figure out like, how can I go about mentoring and coaching people, like how I want to do it in a way where it's authentic, not your conventional, just one-on-one, but like, what does that look like? Right. And again, that's the authenticity. So figuring that out. And then I'll also be launching a podcast soon that will be, unique, as I mentioned to you
I can't
before.
wait. I can't wait.
Yeah, so I'm excited. So yeah,
Cool.
sure.
Thank you so much for your time, for your energy, and for you. And I'll make sure to put all those links into the description. And we'll do this again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. And we
That's,
definitely will. Okay.
that was good. Catch you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.